Welcome to the world of daily life stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy listening. The incident. Boarding a flight should be an uneventful experience, routine and almost forgettable. But for Lana Carter, a 34-year-old professional and mother of two, a simple trip from Atlanta to New York would become a defining moment in her life. Lana, a poised and charismatic woman, worked tirelessly as a social worker in underserved communities. Her journey to New York wasn't for leisure, it was for a conference where she would be one of the keynote speakers. Her topic, breaking barriers and building bridges. Ironically, the challenges she was about to face would underscore the very essence of her speech. As Lana approached the boarding gate, she carried herself with her usual grace. Dressed in a sharp navy blue suit and carrying her favorite leather tote, she exuded confidence. Her seat was in first class, a reward for her hard work and dedication to her career. She had booked it months in advance, knowing how much she needed to be well rested for her presentation. The gate agent greeted her politely, scanned her ticket, and gestured toward the jet bridge. Lana smiled back and made her way onto the plane, where she was immediately greeted by a young flight attendant named Amelia. Amelia, whose blonde hair was tightly wound into a bun, looked Lana up and down before forcing a tight smile. "Can I help you find your seat, ma'am?" Amelia asked in a tone that carried a hint of condescension. Lana handed over her ticket. "No, thank you. I can manage. I'm in 3A. Amelia's smile faltered. "Are you sure? First class is toward the front." "I'm aware," Lana replied, maintaining her composure. As Lana moved to place her tote in the overhead bin, Amelia stepped in, almost blocking her path. "Ma'am, I just need to confirm something," she said, taking the ticket and studying it as if it might spontaneously combust. "This is a first-class ticket." Lana could feel the stares of the other passengers. Her cheeks burned, but she kept her head high. "Yes, it is. Is there a problem?" Amelia's hesitation spoke volumes. She scanned the ticket once more, before reluctantly stepping aside. "No problem, ma'am. Enjoy your flight." But her tone suggested otherwise. As Lana settled into her seat, she noticed the whispers. A middle-aged man, 2 rows ahead, stole glances at her before leaning in to whisper something to his companion. The couple seated across the aisle gave her a once-over and exchanged disapproving looks. Lana tried to ignore them, focusing instead on her tablet and the speech she was about to deliver. Moments later, Amelia returned. "Excuse me, ma'am. Could you step into the aisle for a moment?" Confused but compliant, Lana stood. Amelia gestured toward the back of the plane. "I think there's been a mix-up with your ticket. Coach is just a few rows behind." The words hit Lana like a slap. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the cabin on her. Taking a deep breath, she said, "There's no mix-up. I've shown you my ticket. I paid for this seat." Amelia's expression hardened. "I understand, but I'll need to double-check with the gate agent." "I'll save you the trouble," Lana replied, her voice calm but firm. "Would you like to speak with your supervisor?" A murmur rippled through the cabin. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably, while others watched with a morbid fascination. A young boy whispered loudly to his mother, "Why are they making her move?" The supervisor, a tall man with a no-nonsense demeanor, arrived within minutes. He glanced at Lana's ticket and, after confirming its authenticity, nodded curtly. "Ma'am, you're in the correct seat. I apologize for the misunderstanding." Amelia, visibly flustered, muttered an insincere apology and walked away. But the damage was done. Lana sat back down, her hands trembling slightly. As the plane took off, she couldn't shake the humiliation she'd felt. This wasn't the first time she'd been judged unfairly, but the public nature of it, the whispers, the stares, made it sting all the more. What Lana didn't know was that this incident was far from over. The journey ahead would be more than a flight, it would be a battle for dignity and justice that would ripple far beyond the confines of that airplane cabin. Lana spent the first hour of the flight trying to shake off the weight of what had just happened. She knew she needed to focus. Her speech at the conference in New York was important, and she couldn't afford to let the actions of one flight attendant derail her purpose. She opened her tablet and began scrolling through her notes, but her thoughts kept circling back to the incident. It wasn't just about her, it was about the message it sent to everyone watching. Across the aisle, an older woman caught her attention with a sympathetic look. The woman leaned closer and said softly, "You handled that well, dear. Some people just don't know any better." Lana offered a small smile, appreciating the gesture, but not the excuse. "Thank you," she replied politely, though her mind churned with the deeper implications of what had transpired. She glanced around the cabin and saw that some passengers were still whispering, while others avoided eye contact altogether. She could feel the divide, the silent acknowledgement of what had occurred, paired with the discomfort of addressing it directly. A few rows ahead, a man in a business suit tapped away on his laptop, oblivious to the world around him. Behind her, a child's laughter broke the tension momentarily, but it quickly faded back into the hushed atmosphere. Lana turned her attention back to her tablet, determined to focus on her work. But the universe had other plans. Midway through the flight, Amelia reappeared, carrying a tray of drinks. Her demeanor had shifted slightly, but her condescension lingered just below the surface. As she served the passengers, she avoided eye contact with Lana altogether, skipping her row entirely. It was a petty move, but Lana decided to let it slide. She didn't need a drink, what she needed was peace of mind. Minutes later, however, Amelia returned, this time with a different tone. "Excuse me, Ms. Carter," she said, her voice carrying an edge that made Lana's stomach tighten. "I've just received a report that your luggage might have been tagged incorrectly. We're trying to locate it to ensure it ends up in New York." Lana frowned. "My luggage was checked improperly. I watched them tag it at the counter." "Yes, but there seems to be some confusion. Would you mind describing your bag?" It was an unusual request, especially mid-flight. Lana hesitated, then described her luggage, a black Samsonite suitcase with a red ribbon tied to the handle. "Thank you," Amelia said, scribbling on her notepad. "We'll do our best to sort this out." As she walked away, Lana couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about her luggage. She had traveled enough to know how the system worked, and this level of attention to a single bag was far from normal. Her instincts proved correct when, shortly before landing, Amelia returned yet again. This time, her expression was a mixture of forced professionalism and thinly veiled irritation. "Ms. Carter, I need to inform you that your luggage has been temporarily misplaced. We're working with the ground staff to locate it, and we'll keep you updated." Lana stared at her, stunned. "Are you saying my luggage didn't make it onto the plane?" Amelia hesitated, then said, "That appears to be the case." Lana took a deep breath, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I'm supposed to speak at a conference tomorrow. Everything I need is in that bag. How does this happen?" "We're doing everything we can," Amelia replied, her tone clipped. Lana wanted to argue, but she knew it wouldn't change anything. Instead, she resolved to deal with the issue once they landed. For now, she focused on keeping her composure. When the plane touched down in New York, Lana disembarked quickly, her nerves frayed. She headed straight to the baggage claim office, where a young agent confirmed what she already suspected: her luggage was not on the flight. They assured her it would arrive on the next plane and offered her a standard apology and a small compensation voucher. As Lana left the airport, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't an accident. The humiliation on the plane, the missing luggage, it all felt connected. But she was too exhausted to dwell on it. She checked into her hotel and spent the evening shopping for essentials, mentally preparing herself for her presentation the next day. The conference was held in a sprawling convention center in Midtown Manhattan. Despite the chaos of the previous day, Lana delivered her speech with grace and power, captivating the audience with her insights on resilience and community building. Her words resonated deeply, earning her a standing ovation. After the conference, Lana was approached by a journalist who had been in the audience. The woman introduced herself as Simone Hayes, a reporter for a major news outlet. Ms. Carter, your speech was incredible, Simone said. But I couldn't help but notice you mentioned a recent experience that tested your resilience. Would you be willing to share more about that? Lana hesitated. She wasn't sure she wanted to relive the ordeal, let alone make it public. But as she looked at Simone, she realized this could be an opportunity to shed light on a larger issue. She recounted the events of the flight, careful to stick to the facts. Simone listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to anger as the story unfolded. This isn't just about you, Simone said when Lana finished. It's about a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. If you're willing, I'd like to write about this. Lana agreed, knowing that sharing her story could spark a broader conversation. The article was published the following week, and it quickly went viral. Titled Flying While Black, One Woman's Fight for Dignity at 30,000 Feet, it detailed Lana's experience and highlighted the broader issue of racial discrimination in air travel. The story struck a chord with readers, many of whom shared their own experiences in the comments section. The airline issued a public statement, apologizing to Lana and vowing to investigate the incident. But the damage was already done. Social media exploded with calls for accountability, and activists began organizing a boycott of the airline until meaningful changes were implemented. Lana, meanwhile, became an unwitting spokesperson for the movement. She appeared on talk shows and participated in panel discussions, using her platform to advocate for fairness and equity. Through it all, she remained grounded, emphasizing that this wasn't about revenge, it was about creating a world where no one else would have to endure what she had. In the end, the airline implemented new training programs for its staff, focusing on unconscious bias and customer service. Amelia was quietly removed from her position, and the company pledged to diversify its hiring practices. For Lana, the experience was both humbling and empowering. What began as an act of humiliation had transformed into a catalyst for change, proving that even in the face of adversity, dignity and grace could triumph. As she boarded her next flight, this time greeted warmly by the crew, Lana couldn't help but smile. The journey wasn't just about getting from one place to another, it was about the people she met along the way and the impact they left behind. And for Lana Carter, that impact was nothing short of remarkable. Lana's life had shifted dramatically since the article went viral. What had started as a humiliating experience on a flight had turned into a movement larger than she had ever imagined. Every day, her inbox filled with emails from people who shared their own stories of discrimination, humiliation, and exclusion. Many thanked her for being brave enough to stand up, for putting her story out there so others could finally feel seen. Yet, the surge of attention came with its own challenges. She found herself navigating an overwhelming wave of emotions. On one hand, there was a deep sense of pride that her experience had sparked meaningful conversations. On the other, there was the exhaustion of constantly reliving the moment. Each interview, panel, or social media post chipped away at her emotional reserves. But Lana knew this wasn't about her anymore, it was about the countless others who couldn't speak up, who didn't have a platform or a voice loud enough to be heard. The airline's response, while public and seemingly apologetic, felt shallow to her. Their promises of change came across as rehearsed, corporate damage control rather than a genuine commitment to addressing the issues at hand. Lana's story may have forced their hand, but real systemic change required more than PR statements. She wasn't interested in empty promises, she wanted to see tangible results. And so, she decided to dig deeper. One evening, after a long day of answering calls and emails, Lana sat down with Simone Hayes, the journalist who had first published her story. Over coffee, they began brainstorming ways to hold the airline, and the broader industry, accountable. "We need to make this about more than just one airline," Lana said, stirring her cup absently. "This is a systemic issue. It's not just about me, and it's not just about this one flight." Simone nodded, her notebook open and pen poised. "What are you thinking?" "I want to create something lasting," Lana replied. "A platform where people can share their experiences, report incidents, and push for industry-wide changes. If airlines know their actions are being tracked, they'll have to think twice before brushing off complaints or allowing discriminatory behavior to continue. Simone leaned forward, her eyes alight with excitement. A watchdog organization? Exactly, Lana said. Not just a platform for complaints, but a place to gather data, identify patterns, and propose solutions. If we can show the public and the industry the full scope of the problem, they can't ignore it. With Simone's help, Lana began laying the groundwork for what would become one of the most significant advocacy organizations in the travel industry. They called it Skyguard, a name that symbolized both vigilance and protection. Lana reached out to friends, colleagues, and even strangers who had written to her, assembling a team of lawyers, activists, and tech experts to bring her vision to life. The first step was creating a digital platform where travelers could submit reports of discrimination, poor treatment, or any other injustices they faced during air travel. The platform was simple to use and allowed for anonymity, ensuring that even those who feared retaliation could share their stories. Over time, the database would reveal patterns, airlines with the most complaints, flight routes where issues were most common, and even specific employees who had been reported multiple times. To fund the initiative, Lana launched a crowdfunding campaign. She was hesitant at first, unsure if people would be willing to support something so ambitious. But within days of the campaign going live, donations poured in. Travelers from around the world shared the campaign on social media, urging others to contribute. In less than a month, they had raised enough money to launch the platform and hire a small team to manage it. As Skyguard began to gain traction, Lana found herself thrust even further into the spotlight. She was invited to speak at industry conferences, where she faced airline executives who were often dismissive or defensive. She sat on panels with policymakers, urging them to consider stronger regulations to protect passengers' rights. And she met with travelers from all walks of life who shared their stories of courage, resilience, and, often, heartbreak. But not everyone supported her efforts. Online, detractors accused her of overreacting or seeking attention. Some claimed she was trying to ruin the airline industry, while others dismissed her as just another angry customer. The criticism stung, but Lana reminded herself that change was never easy. She leaned on her support system, her family, her friends, and the growing community around Skyguard to stay focused on her mission. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when a group of current and former airline employees reached out to Skyguard with insider information. They revealed troubling practices within the industry, from lax oversight on employee behavior to systemic biases in hiring and promotions. One former flight attendant described how she had been pressured to target certain passengers for extra scrutiny, often based on their race or appearance. Armed with this information, Lana and her team began compiling a comprehensive report on discrimination in the airline industry. The report included data from Skyguard, testimonials from travelers and employees, and recommendations for change. When they released it to the public, the response was explosive. Media outlets across the globe covered the findings, and the pressure on airlines grew. The report also caught the attention of lawmakers, some of whom invited Lana to testify before Congress. Sitting in the hearing room, surrounded by reporters and cameras, Lana felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about her story anymore, it was about every person who had been made to feel less than because of their race, gender, or background. She spoke with clarity and conviction, urging lawmakers to take action to protect passengers' rights and ensure accountability within the industry. As Skyguard continued to grow, so did its impact. Airlines began implementing new training programs and revising their policies. Some partnered with Skyguard to address issues proactively, while others resisted, only to face public backlash when their shortcomings were exposed. The movement Lana had sparked was no longer confined to air travel. It was part of a broader push for equity and justice in every aspect of life. Through it all, Lana remained grounded. She continued her work as a social worker, balancing her advocacy with her commitment to her community. Her children, who had watched their mother face adversity with grace and strength, became her greatest supporters. And though the journey had been challenging, Lana knew it was worth it. One evening, as she prepared for yet another speaking engagement, Lana received an email from a young woman named Kiera. The email was short but powerful. Kiera wrote about how she had been inspired by Lana's story to speak up after facing discrimination at her own workplace. She ended the email with a simple sentence, "You showed me that I'm not powerless." Lana sat back in her chair, tears welling in her eyes. For all the struggles, all the criticism, and all the moments of doubt, this was why she kept going. It wasn't just about changing the airline industry or even about her own experience, it was about empowering others to find their voices and demand the respect they deserved. As she walked onto the stage that night, greeted by the applause of a packed auditorium, Lana felt a sense of purpose that was unshakable. Her story had become more than a moment of humiliation, it was a testament to the power of resilience, community, and the belief that even the smallest actions could lead to extraordinary change. And in that moment, she knew her journey was far from over, it was only just beginning. The momentum Lana had built through Skyguard was undeniable. The organization had not only become a trusted resource for travelers worldwide but also a force to reckon within the airline industry. Airlines that once dismissed her efforts as a passing trend were now reaching out, eager to collaborate and show their commitment to change. Yet, despite the progress, Lana knew the work was far from complete. One evening, she sat at her desk reviewing the latest data from Skyguard. The reports poured in daily, detailing incidents of discrimination, mistreatment, and systemic failures across airlines. While some airlines had taken visible steps to address the issues, others seemed to be doubling down on defensive tactics, denying problems and deflecting blame. It was frustrating, but Lana had learned that systemic change often came in waves. Progress and resistance were two sides of the same coin. As she scrolled through the reports, a particular entry caught her eye. It was from a passenger named Darren King, a black entrepreneur who had faced blatant discrimination while traveling for a business deal. Darren's story mirrored her own in many ways. He had been questioned about his first-class ticket, subjected to extra scrutiny during boarding, and ultimately humiliated in front of other passengers. But what made his case particularly compelling was what happened after. Darren had recorded the incident on his phone. The video, attached to his report, was both shocking and familiar. It showed a flight attendant questioning Darren repeatedly, her tone growing more aggressive as he calmly asserted his right to his seat. Other passengers could be heard murmuring in the background, some defending Darren while others remained silent. By the end of the video, the flight attendant had called security, forcing Darren to disembark despite holding a valid ticket. The video ended with Darren standing in the terminal, frustration etched across his face. Lana replayed the video multiple times, each viewing reigniting the anger and determination she had felt during her own ordeal. She reached out to Darren immediately, inviting him to share his story more broadly. He agreed, and together, they began crafting a campaign to spotlight the pervasive nature of discrimination in air travel. When Darren's video was released through Skyguard's platform, it quickly went viral. The footage was undeniable proof of the issues Lana had been fighting against, and it sparked outrage across social media. News outlets picked up the story, and hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack and #JusticeInTheAir began trending worldwide. The public demanded answers, and even government officials weighed in, calling for investigations into the airline involved. For Lana, Darren's story marked a turning point. It wasn't just about exposing individual incidents anymore, it was about galvanizing a movement that could no longer be ignored. She began organizing town hall meetings in major cities, inviting travelers, airline employees, and community leaders to share their experiences and brainstorm solutions. These meetings were emotional and raw, filled with stories of pain, frustration, and resilience. But they also sparked hope. People who had once felt powerless began to see the potential for change, and the sense of collective purpose was palpable. One of the most impactful moments came during a town hall in Atlanta. A young woman named Ayanna stood up to share her story. She had been working as a flight attendant for a major airline but had recently quit due to the constant pressure to conform to discriminatory practices. Ayanna described how she had been instructed to monitor certain passengers based on vague and biased criteria, often feeling complicit in actions she knew were wrong. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her resolve was clear. "I stayed quiet for too long because I was afraid of losing my job," Ayanna said, her eyes scanning the room. "But watching people like Lana and Darren stand up gave me the courage to speak out. We have to hold the industry accountable, not just for passengers, but for employees like me who want to do the right thing." Ayanna's testimony resonated deeply, and Lana knew they needed to amplify voices like hers. She worked with Ayanna and other former airline employees to create a whistleblower program through SkyGuard, providing a safe space for workers to report unethical practices. The program quickly became a vital resource, uncovering patterns of misconduct and shedding light on the systemic issues that fueled discrimination. As the movement gained traction, it also attracted powerful allies. Civil rights organizations, advocacy groups, and even celebrities began lending their support to SkyGuard's mission. High-profile figures shared Darren's video and called for accountability, drawing even more attention to the cause. Donations poured in, allowing SkyGuard to expand its operations and launch new initiatives, including educational campaigns aimed at promoting diversity and inclusion within the airline industry. But with success came challenges. The backlash from certain corners of the industry was fierce. Some airline executives accused Lana of tarnishing their reputations, while others attempted to discredit her efforts by questioning her motives. Trolls on social media bombarded her with hateful messages, accusing her of being divisive or seeking fame. The noise was relentless, and there were nights when Lana felt the weight of it all bearing down on her. During one particularly difficult evening, Lana's mother called her. "Baby, you can't let them get to you," her mother said, her voice filled with both warmth and firmness. "You've always been stronger than they give you credit for. Remember why you started this. Remember the people you're helping." Her mother's words grounded her, reminding her of the bigger picture. Lana began focusing on the positive impact she was making, drawing strength from the community she had built. Every message of gratitude, every story of change, every small victory reinforced her resolve. One of those victories came in the form of legislative action. Thanks to the pressure generated by SkyGuard and its supporters, lawmakers introduced a bill aimed at strengthening protections for passengers and employees in the airline industry. The bill included provisions for mandatory anti-discrimination training, increased oversight of airline practices, and harsher penalties for violations. While it was just the first step, it represented a significant milestone in the fight for equity. As the bill made its way through Congress, Lana continued to push forward. She knew that true change required more than legislation, it required a cultural shift within the industry and society as a whole. She began partnering with educational institutions, developing workshops and training programs that emphasized empathy, cultural awareness, and the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect. Through it all, Lana remained deeply connected to the people she was fighting for. She traveled across the country, meeting with travelers, employees, and community leaders, listening to their stories and finding ways to amplify their voices. Each encounter fueled her determination, reminding her that this was more than a fight for justice, it was a fight for humanity. By the end of the year, SkyGuard had become a global force, with chapters in multiple countries and a growing network of advocates committed to creating a more equitable travel industry. Lana's journey, which had started with a moment of humiliation on a flight, had transformed into a movement that was changing lives and reshaping an entire industry. As she reflected on how far she had come, Lana knew there was still work to be done. But she also knew she wasn't alone. The community she had built, the stories she had shared, and the change she had inspired were proof that resilience and courage could create ripples far beyond what anyone imagined. And as she prepared for the next chapter of her journey, Lana felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that the fight for justice was a fight worth continuing. The passage of the legislation advocating for stronger protections in the airline industry marked a watershed moment for SkyGuard and its mission. Lana Carter, once a woman whose humiliating experience on a flight had left her questioning her worth, now stood as a transformative figure in a global movement. But with every victory, Lana was acutely aware that the work was far from over. Systemic change wasn't about single events or isolated achievements, it was a continuous journey, a series of battles in an ever-evolving war for justice and equity. Lana's days were filled with meetings, strategy sessions, and public appearances. She had become a household name, her story a symbol of what could be accomplished when courage met opportunity. Still, she refused to let the accolades distract her from the real work. For every policy change or public apology, there were thousands of stories yet to be told, countless individuals who still faced the sting of discrimination in silence. Lana was determined to ensure their voices would not be lost. One of her most ambitious projects was the launch of SkyGuard Academy, an educational initiative designed to dismantle biases and foster understanding across the airline industry. Partnering with universities, civil rights organizations, and diversity experts, the program aimed to train future airline professionals, from pilots to flight attendants, in cultural competence and empathy. Lana believed that the key to long-term change lay in reshaping the mindset of the industry from the ground up. As the program gained traction, SkyGuard Academy began to receive interest from major airlines. Several signed on to incorporate the training into their employee onboarding processes. While some executives viewed the move as a necessary concession to public pressure, others embraced it as an opportunity to lead the industry in a new direction. For Lana, this was a significant step forward, proof that change was possible, even in spaces resistant to it. But the victories didn't come without setbacks. Opposition to SkyGuard grew louder in some corners of the industry, with certain factions accusing Lana of tarnishing the reputation of aviation as a whole. Online smear campaigns emerged, questioning her qualifications and painting her as a provocateur rather than a reformer. The criticism often felt deeply personal, especially when it targeted her race or gender, and there were moments when Lana wondered if the fight was worth the toll it took on her mental and emotional health. It was during one of these low points that Lana received a letter in the mail. It came from a young woman named Elise, a recent college graduate who had experienced racial profiling during her first solo trip abroad. Elise described how the flight crew had treated her with suspicion, even accusing her of tampering with her seat assignment when she simply asked for clarification about her boarding pass. The humiliation had left her questioning whether she would ever feel comfortable traveling again. But the letter didn't end there. Elise went on to explain how she had stumbled upon SkyGuard while researching similar incidents online. Reading Lana's story had given her the courage to file a formal complaint against the airline and to speak up for herself in ways she never thought possible. "You made me believe I could reclaim my dignity," Elise wrote. "Thank you for showing me that my voice matters." Lana held the letter in her hands for a long time, tears streaming down her face. It was a reminder of why she had started this journey and of the countless lives her work had touched. For every detractor, there were people like Elise, individuals whose lives had been changed by the movement she had helped create. Fueled by this renewed sense of purpose, Lana threw herself back into her work. One of her next major initiatives was an international summit on equity in air travel. Held in Washington, D.C., the summit brought together industry leaders, policymakers, activists, and travelers from around the world to discuss the challenges and opportunities in creating a more inclusive aviation industry. The event was a logistical feat, months in the making, but it was also a resounding success. The highlight of the summit was Lana's keynote address, delivered to a packed auditorium and broadcast live to millions of viewers. Standing on the stage, Lana spoke with the same calm yet powerful conviction that had carried her through her first speech at the New York conference years earlier. "This isn't just about planes or airports or policies," she said, her voice resonating with emotion. "This is about the simple, fundamental truth that every human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter where they come from, what they look like, or how much money they have. When we allow discrimination to persist in one area of our lives, it seeps into every other aspect. We cannot afford to be complacent. Change doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we demand it, loudly, clearly, and together." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the impact Lana had made. But the most significant moment came afterward, when a group of airline executives approached her backstage. They represented one of the largest international carriers, a company that had been resistant to SkyGuard's efforts in the past. Now, they were ready to talk. They wanted to collaborate on an industry-wide initiative to address the issues Lana had been fighting against for years. The negotiations that followed were challenging but fruitful. The resulting partnership, known as the Clear Skies Alliance, brought together airlines from across the globe to share best practices, standardize anti-discrimination training, and create a centralized system for handling passenger complaints. The alliance marked a historic shift in the industry, one that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. As the months turned into years, Lana's role began to evolve. While she remained deeply involved in Skyguard and its initiatives, she also began mentoring the next generation of advocates and leaders. She understood that true progress required a collective effort, and she was determined to ensure the movement she had started would continue long after she stepped back from the spotlight. One of her proudest moments came when Ayanna, the former flight attendant who had spoken out at the Atlanta Town Hall, was named the director of Skyguard's whistleblower program. Ayanna had become a tireless advocate for employees within the industry, and her leadership was instrumental in exposing and addressing systemic issues that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. Lana's personal life also began to find a new equilibrium. Her children, now teenagers, often accompanied her to events and meetings, eager to learn from their mother's example. They were her greatest source of joy and a constant reminder of why she had chosen to fight for a better world. One evening, as she sat with her family on the porch of their home, Lana reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The humiliation she had felt on that flight years ago was a distant memory, replaced by a profound sense of purpose and accomplishment. But more than anything, she felt gratitude for the people who had supported her, for the lives she had touched, and for the knowledge that even in the face of adversity, change was always possible. The road ahead was still long, and Lana knew there would be new challenges to face. But she also knew she wasn't alone. The movement she had built, the community she had nurtured, and the legacy she had created would carry forward, ensuring that no one else would have to endure the pain of silence or invisibility. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Lana smiled. The fight wasn't over, but neither was her hope. And that, she knew, was the most powerful thing of all.